I talked to somebody down in Texas and Florida, was doing calls for the blood drive. A lot of our summertime people are down south right now. And hell, they had 8 inches of snow down there.
Yeah, saw a picture on
Yeah.
Urban Space. And
I said, you guys,
covered in.
you guys must have been pretty popular with your snowblowers. You go around that one.
Well, the Gulf of America was froze over,
Yeah.
so watched them
Yeah, the Gulf of America.
scooping sand off the beach into spread trucks, and they were spreading just beach sand on the roads to try to help.
Hey, how you doing?
Never works like that.
Yeah, you know,
I mean,
You see like 2 to 4 roads and she shot us down there.
Maybe that works.
That's the lake problem. It was just.
a couple sentences to get it settled in.
Getting the laptop.
I got actually. Oh, really?
So you're pulling double duty, that's what you said.
Turn that off.
All right, I've got 6:30. Let's call the meeting to order and start off with the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next we will move on to public forum. This is an opportunity for citizens to present items to the council that are not on the agenda. Each presentation is limited to 3 minutes with a maximum of 15 minutes set aside. I'm sorry, let's take that back. Move on to item number 3, consideration and approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I have one quick addition under council concerns, 12.2, if we could call it liquidation/disposal of fixtures and furniture at 315 Main. It'll be fast and fast.
All right, are there any other additions under council concerns or any other additions or corrections to the agenda?
Oh. Here's, you got 12.2.
12.2.
Okay. Right, that's the 12.3. Okay, 12.2. Right, I'll go ahead and make a motion with the agenda with the addition of, Dan's council concern under 12.2.
Perfect. I've got a motion by Gina. Do I hear a second?
I saw, oh, go ahead.
Motion by Gina, second by Dan. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. All right, now we will move on to public forum. This is an opportunity for citizens to present items to the council that are not on the agenda. Each presentation is limited to 3 minutes, maximum of 15 minutes set aside. If your item needs follow-up with the city, staff will arrange for that. If you'd like to step forward for public forum, please make your way to the podium and state your name and address. And we will listen to your concerns. I will ask for a second time. Is there anybody that would like to step forward for public forum? And third and final time, I will ask if anybody would like to step forward for public forum. Hearing none, we will move on to item number 5, Sheriff's Department update. We have Sheriff Nelson here to give us some information.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and for the council. I was asked to attend to discuss extending coverage, I guess, to a 24/7 idea rather than where we're at right now. So I did provide some information. I don't know if we got this released or not.
Did you email it to me?
I did, both of you.
I think you were CC'd on it. So I had requested that the sheriff come to this meeting because I want to get an update on what 24/7, 365-day coverage is. I know the previous council talked about reducing the hours. There's even been talk that since we're the seat of the county that we benefit by that. But I think Pine City sees a lot of, it's got its own residents, but it also sees a lot of people that aren't from our area come through and cause a lot of mischief in our area. During the tourist season in the summer, they seem to take advantage of the fact that there's maybe less police coverage than I would prefer. We put a lot of money and resources into parks, we put money into our schools, we put money into our housing development projects. And we keep asking the deputies to continuously patrol those areas because we keep seeing problems. And I think that we need a heavier police presence than less of a police presence. So that's why I asked the sheriff here to come in and present that. I think the amount was somewhere in the ballpark of 700,000, I believe, to have 24/7 coverage.
Yeah, I gave you numbers, the final number on it is 721,670. So round it up a little from there. That's kind of a starting point. I do a really quick estimation of hours at the current contracted rate. It would take a little bit of fine tuning those numbers if we're going to do something longer term that I could commit to. Also want to remind everyone that hiring is difficult. Hiring in law enforcement takes a long time anyways because of the background check and field training and all of that. So, there is a lag time. We would have to hire to fill those shifts, but it's a good time to start talking if there's some, potential of heading in that direction. Obviously, the more notice we have, the better. All that. So, and there's multiple ways we could structure it. I just looked at it as a simple 12-hour shift times 4. Factored in a sergeant who kind of act as a supervisor for that group. And then they would also help cover some of those open shifts that are going to be created because of built into any schedule. So again, there's other ways we could do that with a officer, not a sergeant or a weak structure.
Marcy and Nicole, would it be fair to say that our current budget is half that $700,000 price tag for half the hours?
Probably quarter,
Right?
it's a quarter of that.
It's a quarter of that currently. Okay.
It's 230 for 10 hours, I believe is what we're saying too. Rough. I think part of that, under the current contract, they can leave and I know that's for safety and coverage throughout the county. Under the contract portion that I was asking sheriff to look at is, should that happen, would there be another deputy that could step in and still fulfill those hours if possible? So again, trying to maintain that 24/7 coverage, even if it's not the normal in-town police.
Well, we make every effort now to fulfill the hours and backfill if somebody, is gonna be out for a period, a sergeant will come down and be in town and cover that. Or we'll have the county car come in if the city car is tied up. So we do cover it pretty well, backfill it now, but again, it's still at 10 hours and not 24 hours. And I think if you look at Rush City, they have considerable more coverage in their town, which is it's noticeable. So I would advocate, obviously, for a little more coverage in Pine View. Both support that. Start a conversation and see where it goes. Come to a committee or whatever that will be. Yes.
I think it's good information to have early in the year, especially if we start looking at things throughout the year. It seems like we always try and request information right at the time of the budget. And there's a lot of things going on at that point. So I certainly appreciate you taking the time to come in here and at least put on everybody's radar about potential possibilities and what they could be looking at.
Did you need me to re-email something, or I can leave it out?
No, I remember, I just didn't attach it. I apologize.
In
It wasn't me, that's good.
Yeah, it was not you.
in the spirit of discussion and just looking at this all the way through, would there maybe be a willingness to discuss maybe a relationship like Rush City has with the sheriff's department there, potentially having an office in City Hall? Maybe a Pine City branded or wrapped vehicle.
Some of those things, yes. I don't know that it'd be beneficial to I suppose it depends on what you guys are gonna do with City Hall. We have an office that's in town already technically, so I don't know that there'd be a whole lot of benefit to having a substation in Pine City,
Okay.
but I'm pretty open to discussing it.
And Sandstone did something different as well, didn't they, with their own in-house?
So they went with like a CSO
Uh-huh,
concept where they have somebody that's not licensed that acts like they're kind of alongside of their zoning officer, where they do a lot of the zoning compliance, the rental inspections, those kind of things.
Okay.
Frankly, on top of some of the rental facilities and some of the blight issues that we don't do under contract, we deal with the blight issues. So their focus was a lot on that, getting
okay.
barking dogs and some of those quality of life things that don't require a license officer to intervene in.
She's a community service officer,
Okay.
is what she does. In Rest City, I understand, Dan, and what I understood when I talked to Amy Mel about it, was that their sergeant, the sergeant that's in charge of the regular troops, comes into Rest City office once a week. They provide a desk and then people can come in and talk to them. It's for whatever period of time. I don't know the hours, but that's what's provided. It's on a once a week basis. I think that's the only, I don't think they have like a station there. I think that's just an office. That's what I understood. We could get clarification from me on that.
Yeah, and again,
You
more
know,
than willing to see what that would look like and I get the desire to have a little bit more feel of ownership of public safety and law enforcement, but that's not a bad thing, and I certainly fight against it. So. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions for the sheriff? Thank you.
Hold on, I think we got one for Brock.
Where it increases certain amounts.
Yeah, again, I think, see how it works in, we can cover with the employees. They're in, not layoff, but use elsewhere, whatever those hours would look like.
I like that.
Again, so maybe, there's definitely a seasonal difference. Oh, yeah.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much for.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Yeah, thank you, Sheriff.
All right, moving on. Does anybody have any questions or comments about our department head updates and committee department head updates?
Could I just ask, are we running, I've noticed that when the agenda first goes out, we keep running into like August reports. Have we identified that issue?
Yes. Would
Kinda
you like
freaked
to
me
explain this? She's more techie than I am.
Yep,
Okay, so when you're going and downloading the update, are you hitting the download again, yes, or download again, no?
just opens up.
Okay, cause I'm thinking it might be like cause when I went and looked at it, it was fine on my phone, so I'm thinking it's like an old document that keeps coming up on your phone versus if you like went to the agenda packet and scroll down, it would show you the current one.
So maybe after council, can you show her how you open? And then, because I think she was explaining it to me that it's like a second okay that needs to happen, and then it opens up the current.
Okay.
that's me. I'm-
Yeah.
I barely know how
Only
to
on,
turn mine on.
only on mobile though, not on.
It does seem weird because the last meeting, it was certain departments, this meeting, it was different departments, so if it's downloading the wrong file, like the last meeting, fire was current, this meeting, fire was in August. That's what I can think of off the top of my head, so that's,
Yeah.
if it's pulling off the old file, that doesn't quite make sense.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, we'll keep digging, because we couldn't duplicate what you're saying, so.
I had the liquor store in the reverse order too. The first meeting it was August and then this meeting it was the January, so.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I just like to say thank you to department heads for the updates. Sounds like everybody's been very busy and I appreciate the information.
Thanks, Dan. All right, we'll move on to item number 7. These are committee updates. All right, first is HRA. Was that HRA? I'm trying to think back that far about what we talked about.
It was time spent on the fund feasibility.
Discussed, both at HRA and EDA, the Fond Meadow feasibility study.
We need the bylaws. We are close, but there was just a few topics that needed a little more looking into so that they could maybe carry us for the next 10 or 15 years.
Yep.
And then we had a regular business portion of the meeting, so I think to share with other council members is just continuing to have conversation about Fond Meadows and its feasibility with, and what that could mean for the HRA in the city. Some of the ideas, how to move it forward.
Move on to EDA. EDA was a pretty slim meeting, I feel like. It was mostly just updating the committee on made some decisions about re-rolling some CDs and rolling some of the, our RLF funds into a CD for next year. I decided to bump that up a little bit, so we could gain a little more interest on it.
What does bump it up mean, time wise or?
Dollar wise, I think we added
Additional 50.
additional $50,000 to our CD for a 12-month CD.
It's like 5%.
Yeah.
Well, I think they got it, it was 4.75, I think is what they got.
It was just a 9-month CD. That's what I signed in.
Yeah, the one was a 9-month CD, so they didn't co-term at the same time.
Ladder it.
So they wouldn't. And planning commission, what did we do at planning commission? We had some discussion about some townhome structures in the Fond Meadows development. There was discussion around we talked about cannabis plan,
Yep.
last planning meeting. And I'm trying to think of what else we talked about. Sorry.
I think that was it. That lot combination, we talked about tiny homes a little bit more again, but the appendix Q was introduced.
Yep.
And that continues to move down a very positive path. Pretty close to being ready,
Yeah.
to be quite honest. It's encouraging.
Really close.
Talk about chicken keeping.
We did talk about chickens and PUD and
Get them. Eggs are high.
what we need to do to try to move forward with a PUD that's not a PUD anymore we talked about chickens. It was interesting to learn.
Yeah.
Cannabis, Fond Meadows, Cross Lake.
Okay. And public works.
Oh, you didn't get parks and buildings. You skipped one.
I don't have parks and buildings on.
Okay.
Oh. Okay. Public Works, and we had Public Works building, thanks to Maury, the staff did a great job, made us feel real welcome. We went out to the Public Works building and it was, really nice to see, the equipment and the areas that, they're working with. Tom Miller was out there, our fire chief, and he was talked about working on, standardizing hydrants around the town. And we talked about a little bit about the cost. And we're gonna get some more information on that. Flow testing was talked about from Tom and the importance of it for ISO points and requirements. And we're asked a lot of times from businesses coming in anyway, when they're looking at properties, what's the water pressure there? We looked at the request about the striping of the crosswalks and that. We had a lot of discussion on that, a lot of good discussion, people that were there to support it and people that were just there for information. We're at that, that's all we are right now at this point, is we're gathering information and trying to put together statistics and policies and this is you would think this would be kind of a slam dunk, but this is a very, very intense, request, I think. Has a lot of, could have some implications, hopefully all positive, but sometimes things like this don't lead to all positive. So we're trying to keep that from happening. We talked about sidewalk replacement plans. We talked about, the safe crossing, and that's really important with the new housing for the college students. We're gonna try to get together with, the city, the county, and the property owners to see what we can do to improve that. And, we'd like to get East Central Electric to one of our meetings to talk about, pole or, streetlight replacements and kind of get a little bit of a policy on that from them, how they pick this and stuff, because some of them seem to get fixed right away and some of them don't, and people aren't understanding that. So maybe if we have someone from ECE stand there and tell us what the procedures are, we might understand a little better, but that's pretty much it. That's all, too much.
I have a question for Brock, if I can back up for a moment. Any, update on lighting near the library? Yes, I guess we'll find out where next meeting. Thank you.
All right, and last I have ordinance. Ordinance, we discussed draft ordinance for community art. Worked on the cannabis ordinance a little bit and started discussion on water rates and that situation and project. And see, we ran a little long for our meeting, so that the last half of that meeting was pretty quick, but to be continued. Anything to add, Dan?
No, I thought the public artwork ordinance was really well done. Actually, I believe we're bringing it to a public meeting at planning in February, and you're gonna do a public meeting at council as well. It does a really great job of addressing public art, what people could and couldn't do inside of public right of way. There's a permit that's attached to it. Like it's a really neat opportunity to open up some artistic expression for folks. While public works still, while we're figuring out what parts of the right of way they're safe to be put in, that kind of thing. It was great. It was a good meeting. And Ellers is gonna be present at the next one so that we can have an opportunity to discuss and ask about water rates and what kind of latitude and what things we might be able to do there.
And backing up, I guess, we could have talked to the sheriff about, being more robust in our presentation of our crosswalks. And so what could the sheriff, his deputies do to help us enhance it? Sticks with me that at the very, very first meeting we had, there was comments made about other cities, people stopping crosswalks in Penn City. It seems like they often don't. I have good success with the one that you push the button and the lights flash, everyone seems to stop there, but clearly we can't do that at every crosswalk. But it would be great to have some respect brought back for pedestrians in the crosswalk. And what does it mean?
I think the police could help us, but I think the other component is visibility, and that intersection in itself. There's a lot of cars very close to the corners and create a lot of very good blind spots. It'd be nice to see some no parking a little further away from those corners to increase that visibility, because a lot of times you can't see the little kids running out between the cars.
Agreed. Thank you, everybody. Next, we'll move on to the consent items. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the consent items?
Can I make a motion just to have discussion, or if we could?
Yeah.
Normally we do a motion, a second, and then discussion. That's all right.
I'll second it.
Discussion point would be on 8.6, the planning commission application for Thomas Foster. And it's not necessarily about the application itself. I'm just hopeful as a council and maybe with staff that we can come up with a clearly written policy of how we handle committee applications, which committees can self-appoint, who, we have a good feel of up to when the application is submitted, but then like we had one last meeting that was a new business. This one came through consent. Should there be interview questions, just who handles the onboarding to make sure that our new committee and commission members are up to speed and have the materials that they need to be successful. So that's my discussion point on that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Too.
Get it uniform and get that information to them as quickly as possible and, you know.
Would that come-
just should happen.
Would that come individually from the committees or would that come from staff at City Hall?
My
That direction.
opinion, I think it would be best if it was maybe HR and through city staff to make sure that if there's anything that exists already, they're gonna have better access to it, so we can take a look at it, make sure we're not violating any sort of policies or procedures that may exist in the HR world. And then maybe take a look at it and have council approve it. And then as far as the onboarding at the committee level, that I think would be up for discussion. Maybe, you know, typically, maybe it's somebody on a committee or commission that takes that person under their wing and does the onboarding piece, but city staff could potentially be the ones to have all the materials ready. It's gonna be
At one point, I was trained in, conducting meetings and then bringing new people on board and in a nutshell, anytime a new person came, we started over from the beginning, you know, and so then even if you were 2 years and you got to hear all the information over again, even if it's quick, you know, everybody kind of gets on board at a different time, but if we could have that in place, because then at the time, your third year on that committee, you go down, and you can be helpful. You know, but every time and then if someone resigns and it's in the middle of the year, you still start over with that information, kind of go back to the basics. So if we could get there, that would be awesome, great.
I had one other thing on the consent items. 8.4, Mark Helferson. I would like to say thank you for the years of service and commitment that he made to the fire service. We honor Citizen of the Year, we honor property improvement plans, but we don't acknowledge firefighters that put in 2 decades of service to the community. And there's about a 90% resignation or resigning, quitting rate at about the 10-year mark. Dave's probably familiar with the amount of people that actually make it to the retirement point, and that's a pretty significant commitment. So it would be nice in the future if we could at least invite them in, maybe do a picture with the council, a handshake and a thank you, and put something in the paper to acknowledge their years of service. Don't cost us anything.
front for a cake, maybe.
Oh, that's cool. A cake?
Your take,
Cake is cheap.
It's a nice idea.
I like it. All right. we've got-
I think that's a good idea, I really do, and
Yeah.
anybody that's spent 20 years knows it seems like it takes forever, but it goes really fast. But it's a lot nicer to listen to that fire whistle go off and just roll over in bed and get up and go on that cold roof and chain a chimney out. I probably did that millions of times. Yeah, no, you're right. It is, we're asking an awful lot of these people. They sacrifice a lot of their personal life. They sacrifice their family lives. And, yeah, I think we could be a little more. I mean, I know we can't spend money. That's pretty much an out. I mean, I think that's horrible that you can't even recognize anybody with a small gift, but that's the world, guys. So, yeah, I like that idea. Let's offer it to them anyway if we don't do anything else.
Maybe even do it on the next agenda, bring it back.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
like that.
I think that's a very nice idea.
Okay. Do you need a motion on that or are we just gonna go?
All right, after the discussion, I have a motion from Dan to accept the consent items and a second from Dave. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. All right, next we're gonna move on to item number 9.1, on old business is 2025 council committee appointments.
So each council member reached out with their selections. Let's see if I can read this. And it fit well. This is just looking for council to approve. This as it stands. I don't know how to make it smaller.
We're missing library.
Yes.
Oh, it's there.
I'll make the motion.
Huh?
That
It's not on this one.
Oh, I got the, I got the good,
would
I got
be
a good
the
copy.
library committee, added.
And do we need to put 315 main sub, the work
Sub
group on there
goalie.
too?
A subgroup.
Just because it's a work group.
It's a work group. Is it possible to have the library be called a work group? Cause it's, looking at our past meetings, there's nothing where decisions are being made. There's,
Well, because it was a committee, so I wonder if there's more bylaws.
there are no bylaws that I can find for the library.
Let's talk to, before we do that, let's talk to, some people with historical knowledge. And see, so right now I'd be comfortable with adding the library committee on that and approve these committee appointments.
well, can I add to yours?
Yeah, so,
Well, I've mentioned this to Marcy, I probably beat this drum to a couple people, but I think, there's other committees that people are on. I'm on the fire district committee, I'm on the fire committee, I'm on the civic center board committee, I'm on the Hilltop Park committee. And I know there's other ones here that are on a lot of other committees too. Aren't you on a cable committee or something, Gina? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to, because when we leave this place, who's gonna remember what I was on? I mean, are they, and is somebody gonna step up, or do these organizations have to come back to the city and say, oh, we need another representative for our organization? I mean, these are voting positions on the,
so Civic Center Committee isn't a city-run committee, though. That is a Civic Center Committee that they ask for a member of the council to be part of. So
Right.
that we're not really in charge of, they could say in a year, we don't want the city council coming to our meetings anymore. So it's not our requirement. So that, that one,
well, I think the reason that we're there is because you've got an area up there
Yeah.
that is split into, dual ownership. Basically, it's the city of Pine City and the school district. The civic center leases the building and the facilities from the school system. We sit up there with a warming house, but we have, MOAs with organizations, which is the best thing, so we can keep track of this and know what we committed, because we know the mistakes that were made, and we don't want them to happen again. So, I just think it's important that these are listed. I'm not saying there's anything that the city has to do, but when I leave office, somebody needs to take these over. Although, I mean, the organization should not have to come back and ask somebody to be on there.
I see what you mean.
maybe we could just designate what are city-run committees and what are
Right.
invites.
Invites.
Mhm.
Yeah, because it's not, I mean, if I can't make the meeting, I can't make the meeting on some of these, because they have, a lot of the meetings are on Sunday evenings, and that's very convenient. So, and the effect is they even have one
Even on Mother's Day and Father's Day.
and Super Bowl this weekend, yeah.
No, seriously.
But you're dealing with a bunch of dedicated people that run these organizations, and they don't care if it's a Mother's Day, and they don't, a lot of other days. So,
We know, huh?
yeah, I've been there. So, anyway, that's just my suggestion, and categorizing them something else is fine with me.
Can we approve these and, have additions, add to it?
Yeah, I can bring it back and then note those committees on this sheet as well.
Right.
Um,
I think it's important,
I think
and I don't know what other ones, I mean, aren't you on a cable commission or something, and aren't a couple of people, aren't you on something with the county, or
is that access
or
to-
besides where you work?
The fiber.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of
Yeah,
things that,
again, like they invite us, so
Yeah.
we let them initiate, but
So
it wouldn't be bad to list it.
I would make the motion that we approve these committee appointments. And bring back any additional committees or a list of invite subwork committees by the March meeting. That should give you enough time, I think, to find out meetings. So that we continue to move forward if that works.
there you go.
I did have a motion on the floor from Gina. Did you want to amend your budget?
No, I just want to approve these.
Okay.
When you come back, we can approve those.
Okay, so we'll step
Just
back
we can
here.
move forward with this.
Do we
Yeah.
have I've got a motion on the floor from Gina. Do we have a second to Gina's motion to approve
second.
the existing? Second from Kyle. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried.
And just for, if you have a committee meeting that you can't make, text me, shoot me an email, because I'll be more than happy to. It's gonna be an adjustment for Dan, because I'm used to going to all of them, and now I can't go to all of them. So, but I am more than happy to be council representation if somebody can't make it.
Thank you, Dan. All right, let's move on to item number 9.2. This is council meeting dates and times, ordinance 2.08.020, regular meetings.
And we noticed as staff was getting our ordinances all up to date. And I believe Tabitha has us current to date with all of our ordinances on the Muni Code. It's exciting, but while doing that, we discovered that our council meetings are done by ordinance. So this is just the backup when we had questions initially regarding it being conflicting to the school board. And then even like about a week later, then we found this. So this is just to show this is where we are as a city with how we run our meetings. So should we want to discuss this and
The one thing I would say is that the last sentence in here says that it can be otherwise set in motion by a duly made passed at council. So that leaves a gray area in my mind. And the other thing is that it's set in the last meeting of December or in December. Now, if you have a new council that's coming in and replacing an old council and their one of their goals was to set it up so that more citizens could come to meetings, that seems kind of weird that you'd have to wait an entire year to make that promise to those individuals that you ran for. So I think there's some problems with this ordinance, but that last sentence makes me feel like we could set it at a council meeting at any point. I understand that the school has their meetings. I don't know why that we should always have to conform to their aspects or their meetings. It would be nice to sit down and have a conversation at some point with them. But I want to keep bringing this back because I get questions and concerns and comments all the time that people can't come to the daytime meetings. And I know that there's been comments made that we never do anything after daytime meetings, but in the last meeting of switching this back to regular meetings, this is an example of an action that was taken during a daytime meeting. And there's a lot of people that cannot be present for those daytime meetings.
Yeah, I think we did pass, or we will be putting on a survey to the community to at least gather some information as to see what times work best for community members, and that'll give us a little bit more time to make sure that we're not conflicting with another large organization that may pull from our populace that would need or want to come to a city council.
so we've started working on that survey to what it would look like, and I'm wondering if it would be better to have options, instead of just having people reach back to us with what they prefer. Do we want to set up options 1, 2, 3 to see which people like this up? Otherwise, we're gonna have it all over the place, like Saturday, let's meet at Saturday and.
There's an art to taking surveys, so yeah, I would. Before it's published, I would put some thought into it and, keeping it simple and perhaps options. I don't know, I haven't really thought about the questions on the survey, but I know there's an art to taking a survey so that you get good turnout and a good cross section.
If it's too open, we're not gonna have any good
So
answers to direct it.
is Wednesday still the day that, this Wednesday, the day that you would prefer, or could it be Thursday? Could it be Tuesday?
I would really shy away from Thursdays because people like having a long weekend. People like to take off on Thursdays. That's why I stayed away from Thursdays. I'd be open to Thursdays. That'd be a great time. I'd probably be open to Tuesdays too, but probably have to be earlier in the day. I would be hesitant to have it on Mondays, and I'd be hesitant to have it on Fridays.
Yeah.
Wednesday is a pretty easy one to say it's right in the middle of the week. It's easy to set your watch by. That was why I proposed Wednesdays. I'm really cautious on surveys because we did a survey at some point for 315 Main. and not all the information was included, and whether or not renovating it was a beneficial idea for the city. We got into a long discussion about surveys at that time, and the consensus is that if you get elected and your goal is to switch up the meetings or change something, then you don't have to rely on a survey. You got voted on to follow through on that commitment. So the people already made the commitment by electing you to be in the council. Surveys are great if people respond, but we can't govern based on a survey that only a fraction of the voting population votes on. And how do you identify, are they kids? Are they adults? Are they residents? Are they businesses? That is very difficult.
So do you want a survey to even actually go out then? Is that,
I think it's worthless personally, but
They don't cost anything. And I can, with the goal being to get as many people here as possible at the right time, I agree with what Gina said, you know, do we continue the survey and put 3 or 4 days and times on, you know, potentially the way that it is now, with maybe a Tuesday, maybe a Thursday, and then maybe leave an open spot other, you know, so if people have a comment, they can make a
And it
comment.
could even start with, do you have the desire to attend council meetings?
Right,
Because we really don't wanna ask people that have no desire to ever attend a council meeting. What time do you think we should meet?
right.
So, like I said, there's an art to it, and, yeah, I think we should just think about the question or questions we'll ask, and again, identify the goal. Is the goal to change the meeting, or is the goal simply, should we just leave it how it is, or change it? You know, or I don't know, I really don't know what the questions would be, so.
the last part is that I'd kind of like to see it moved or shifted a little bit earlier in the evening. The original proposal was 6. Council's been doing a really good job of having shorter meetings. It gives you back an entire evening when you can get home at 8 o'clock or 7:30 or something. So it'd be nice to at least shift it down to 6:30 or 6 o'clock, or possibly even 5:30, just to give people the evening back.
I could agree with that.
And the one thing that I would also recommend is just, I'd like to see if maybe city staff has the ability to come up with a calendar of a month and throw all of our meetings on there, throw the couple other big meetings that, like county board meetings and school board meetings, just so we could have a visual representation of seeing
That's a good idea.
this day is open, this day is open, just, and then we could base our survey up of those if we decide that a survey is necessary.
great idea. I will have that.
So-
for you.
On our calendar, we could put those in our calendar and just have them on or off for what's published, right? So that way, as counselors, we, you know, like, we could keep the county meeting in the background or whatever, it wouldn't be published on our city website, but, right? I'm just saying, like,
Be handy.
yeah. No, isn't that how we kind of do the meetings, like, you either have them, yeah, publish that, no, don't publish that.
I think you
That
need
never
the chamber,
goes
the
away.
chamber calendar. No, they put everything on there, don't they?
I believe so.
But I don't think they put necessarily the county meetings on there or school board meetings on there. I think there's more geared to business. So anyways, we got some work to do.
My feelings are pretty strong, and I think we can get by with one meeting. I don't understand why we need to. I think we've shown that we can get it done if we just do our homework, and I think everybody's doing their homework. And, if we have to have a little longer once a month meeting, I think that's fine. I think if we have a second meeting, I can remember numerous times over the years where the administrators, whoever was in power, decided that they were gonna have a work session. Well, the work session's turned into another council meeting. And that's all, so if we're gonna do, I'd rather do work sessions and make them true work sessions without any action to be taken. And then we could get some of this stuff that we need to talked out instead of, lengthening the council meetings and stuff. But I think we can get by with one council meeting. That's my feelings.
I think it's a good idea. The only concern I have is, would we ever run into time sensitive constraints? There are gambling permits, liquor license out there that are determined 60 days out or a significant amount of time out. And having only a meeting once a month, it could get into where they either are too early or they're too late.
It's only 12 opportunities a year.
Right.
Yeah.
For
Yeah, I
public,
think we
public
have all-
meetings or.
And maybe it's something that it could be a true work session with a consent agenda item on there, so that if there is time sensitive material on there, they don't have to wait.
If we can control it, but I've never seen it controlled, so I guess that's, I'm open to that, but I mean, we'll see.
Typically, though, someone turning in a liquor license or some type of permit, they do plan ahead where they're giving themselves ample time for it to get to council, get approved, then get to the state. We don't really see last minute.
That was just the example off the top
Yeah.
of my head.
Yeah,
But
it could definitely happen though.
I do wonder if there's just, would there ever be something that would be time sensitive in a consent agenda item? That we could run into trouble.
Well, like I think specifically right now, and this is just off the top of my head, like the fire equipment situation. Last year, there was several times where council had to be able to make decisions quickly to be able to enable fire to move on. And if we only have one business meeting a month and say something vital comes up and it needs council approval, would we still be able to do that at a work session, or would they have to do it at the business?
All right, any further discussion?
I guess for now, the only thing I would ask is that this stays on an old business item. I like Kent's idea of getting it all down on the calendar and then bringing it back and having that discussion at a later date.
Does that set you up, Marcy, with
Yep.
everything you need? Perfect.
Yep, I like this. Thank you.
All right, next we'll move on to item number 9.3, the fund deficit discussion.
Okay, so this is through our audit of last year. We had the cash deficit of the street funding that was not bonded for. So Burkhardt, our auditors, did say that we are able to, do you want to speak on this, or do you want me to just keep going? Oh, okay. But we do have to make a plan for, they do not recommend writing off all of this. They would like to see a plan of how we want to repay ourselves. And Nicole has put together several options of what this would look like. Whether it be a 10-year, 20-year, 30-year payback, it's basically paying ourselves back interest-free. So these were the amortization charts that she put together showing what that would look like, especially now we can do this. So, I mean, we have a budget year, coming up again in June, but didn't you have a deadline as well but we need to know this before the next audit, correct?
If we are forgiving any of it, we will have to do a resolution on what amounts we are forgiving. So, and I would kind of like to get that together and put it on our 24 numbers for the resolution, so that will get cleared with our audits.
What type of forgiveness avenues do we have available if that was to be?
Here on the last page is the funds for $243, $685.83, excuse me. That this is what is being recommended that we forgive. This also came from the auditors. Of course, they said forgiving all of it is an option. They just don't recommend that. And if we want to take 10 years to 30 years to pay it back, but they said this would be an acceptable amount for forgiveness and move forward with the other debt.
Any further questions from council members? I will say personally that I think if we're just paying, if this is something we're paying ourselves back, we're moving money from the general fund into a different fund, or we're paying ourselves. I would say I don't see the harm in stretching this out to be a 30-year, just to ensure that we're not having to raise taxes to pay ourselves back money, essentially would be my main concern.
And what we're wanting to know from council tonight would be if this is acceptable to have this part forgiven. And then we can put together a resolution that would, for the next meeting. So this could be handled during our audit for the 2024 year.
So that's all we're dealing with is 2020.
Basically, yeah, what Nicole needs to know tonight is, are we okay with this? Because then we would put together the resolution.
And just for clarification, that 243 sum was out of the general fund. That's not including the money that was borrowed for the water and sewer fund. Just the 243 is just out of the general fund. Okay. All right, do you need a motion for us to, okay, would someone like to make a motion to proceed with forgiving or otherwise for that 243,685.83?
So moved.
I've got a motion from Dave. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
And a second from Gina. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, so next meeting or, next evening meeting in March, we'll have a resolution on the agenda for council to approve that. Thank you.
All right. Next, we will move on to 9.4 ARPA funds discussion.
All right, so in December, we were able to bring this before council and money was allocated. Except for, I believe, a $29,000, 29,000 was not allocated to a 2024 expense.
And what line will we see that? Line 2?
It'd be the red.
Oh, yep, down here.
I'm here in the red.
Okay, so the 29,000, it's small, but I can't read it even with my glasses. 29,000 something is what still needs to be allocated for, this to be put into 2024. There are suggestions made that it could be used for, just put it towards the previous street project that was not bonded for and, or but it's up to your discretion on how you would like to have us proceed with.
Can I go against that 200 and whatever thousand?
I just want to speak a little bit to the ARPA funds and, talk about the intention of the funds when it came to the city, and it was something that can benefit the community. And I feel like we've done a really good job of that, of making decisions. We haven't used it to try to meet our budget or, anything like that. We've really done a good job on spending it on things in a variety of things that the whole community can benefit from. I feel like I've done this 50 times. I don't know how many years. So it's really nice that we're getting ready to close it out.
If it's regional specific, can we use it to pay down the ECE loan on the tanker?
You can't use it on that.
No.
I asked.
If we wanted to stay within the spirit of saying that it was something that would benefit the community, I think it would be worthwhile to put that towards that 200 and some thousand for the street project, because that would be something that benefits the community. That was a out-of-pocket expense that, though unexpected, does benefit the community. Unless someone else has other thoughts, that's.
But we can do that. I asked that. That's what I asked.
Yes, that is not on the restrictions. It does not state anything about infrastructure. So
Sounds good to me.
Is that your motions there?
Would you like to make a motion?
So I guess just to clarify, we would apply that to that street project and then that amount would be taken off that we've used towards that to go back into what?
but I don't want you guys getting confused at what you guys just forgave because that was 2023 and prior. this $203,000 is gonna be what we paid out on that street project in 2024. So we're gonna have even more money coming out to that deficit. That's what that $203,000 that I'm referring to on here, that we spent in 2024. That 29,000 will decrease that 203 we spent in 2024.
Are there any hanging on projects, sidewalk replacements or anything like that that we could throw?
Hydrant repairs.
Hydrant repairs?
You can't do new projects, that's what
Oh,
it's done at the end of December.
no new. Gotcha. Okay. Yep.
Is your, beach house, your Baja Beach House paid for? So, cause I thought of that too, since that ran over. And we have,
Yeah, and I think we've got 4,000, 20,000, I think, that we had allocated already or obligated as the state wanted us to state in the resolution. So we have money for that set aside to spend this year. It's just this bottom part, we did not get included in the resolution for the dollar amount, and if we don't allocate it back, we will have to get that back.
So Kent, was that a motion to apply that to the street project?
Did you make that a motion?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right, so we've got a motion by Dave and a second by Kyle. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, motion carries. All right, we will move on now to 9.5 Mid-Continent and City of Pine City Dark Fiber IRU Agreement. This is about the purchase of our city-owned fiber that was installed in about 2000, the reconstruction of Highway 61.
So we had this, looked at the contract and there were a couple concerns and brought it back to Midco. They made the changes. I included both so you could see the difference of what was changed and they had no problems with that. Kent had a question about, a clause.
Yeah.
Should we ask them to add a clause, should
I think
city?
so. With this IRU, we are given access back just as it has been for the last 20 years for the next 20 years. I brought up in chatting with Marcy today that it might be a good idea if we don't know that 15 is going to be the permanent home of our city hall, should we add a clause in there that should the city decide to relocate city hall, that would be included in this agreement so
The
that.
new address would be included in that 20-year coverage.
Makes sense.
I like it.
So are you okay with me bringing this back to Midco, asking for that clause to be added that should City Hall's address change to another location within the city, that our continued use for the 20 years would be at a different location? Should we ever move in the next 20 years?
Right.
Okay, I will bring that back and then we'll bring this to the next agenda. Thank you. So I don't need any approval on this. We'll ask for that change and I'll bring it back.
Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you for that.
All right, next we will move into new business. Item number 10.1, resolution 2025-09, contract with a city official.
Again, through our auditors, they brought up, because our IT services was in place prior to being, appointed mayor. And they pointed that this would be a conflict of interest, after the first of the year, but noted that there is a there is a form that could be filled out showing and noting the conflict of interest, noting that we are using this service because it is, doing an RFP, it did come back as the lowest bid and that therefore acceptable as long as we acknowledge this conflict of interest. It is dated through, from February through April, with the hopes the city will have something else in place at that time frame. So this is a temporary resolution for the services.
You're looking for a motion to accept resolution 2025-09. That's my motion.
Got a motion from Gina. If I need to state that, I will be abstaining from this vote because I am directly involved. Motion from Gina. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
A second from Dan. Being it's a resolution, we will proceed with a roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Gina,
Yes,
Dan,
Yes.
and I abstain. Motion carries. We move on now to item number 10.2, water meter replacement plan update from Public Works.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm going to keep this really short and sweet. So we have about 5 years left on our battery life on our water meter and radio outlets. Of course, you know how technology has worked. Meter technology has evolved also. I don't know what it'll look like for us in 5 years, but I have talked to Greg and he's done projects like this with other cities. I guess the way I see it is we would get SCH involved and do an RFP. Then out of that RFP, typically the company that we choose, kind of runs with the ball. Ordering the meters, setting them up, placing them in the homes. And it potentially could be like a dual phase approach or just let's get her done in the summer like we did the first round. So I just wanted to give you an update that it's not out of my mind at all. I think about it. I've been thinking about it since 2010. So we currently have a decent balance in those two enterprise funds. So half of the cost would come out of sewer and half would come out of water. But as you know, we're borrowing some money out of the funds also. So, and we have some other things coming down the line that potentially could cost a large amount of money. So definitely on our radar. I'm anticipating to get started with this within like 3 years. So 2028 would be.
Thank you, Maury. Members of the council, do you have any other questions?
I do have a question. Will we always have our meter charge on our water bill for the meters? Like,
Yeah, well, that's up to the city council, I guess, to change that if they decided. Um,
because I can see why you might, because probably by the time we pay for some meters, we're gonna start saving for the next, but I'm just wondering if there was a fiscal plan or some idea about that.
you know, that might be a question for possibly Hellers at some point. The meters have doubled in cost.
Just in the last few years, they've doubled.
Yeah.
So maybe the meter charge would have to increase to cover that 20-year anticipated replacement. So,
Is there any grant money available from the state, the clean water side of it?
not
This
this
program.
program.
Okay.
The first round was in the USDA. You guys remember we did a USDA loan? But with that, we had to restructure our whole system. And so we've done that. So I believe we probably wouldn't qualify. So
The problem with USDA grant loan is you have high rates. And you're doing the project, borrowing money, and doing the project, and keep the rates high, you have money. Because the rates are high, kind of self.
Gotcha.
To your point, we had right now, there's the answer would be, well, I just got to pay water. You got something that not everybody else has, whether it's, loss or something else. That's probably the story. But we can look into that. There's options, like I said, the last one was investigating. There were a lot of throw out getting potential funding or things like that was the reason at that time the rates were really high. So we're in subsidized part of the project off the grant money because the residents are paying so much for their water.
Thank you.
It'd be really nice if the meters, could alert on overusage or whatever the term is for that, whether it could be an app for us as users or for you. I mean,
There's,
that was just.
So I
Yeah.
be part of it. Now with the cellular, technology, the customer can even go on their app and see what their meter's doing. It'll alert you if it's leaking. If you have sleep, it'll give you a temperature reading of the water. So in the winter, if you're ever getting close to freezing, it can alert you.
That sounds great.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. it is.
It's smart meter like DCE kind of has.
It's, and I expect they can even flow even more in the next 3 years. They went from being grass to now pretty. And from being a positive displacement meter to ultrasonic, where you're capturing down to like the half, 0.05 gallons. So if you do have a drip, you're capturing that water.
Catch the drip.
Any questions?
So thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, item number 10.3, Fawn Meadow Work Group days, times, and feasibility study.
Okay, so in both EDA and HRA, our contracted economic development director, Leslie, was speaking with both committees. She did this presentation. I thought I would include it because this is what the two committees got to see with Fawn Meadows and the possibilities there. She has requested that, no, I think it's this, that she polled EDA and HRA to see which dates worked best for them. She's trying to get a joint meeting together, and what is it, the last page?
It's way down. on the first-
Oh, it switched on me. I thought it was the last one. Okay, yep, I knew it was the last page. So I just wanted to let you guys know as a council that your participation is requested. HRA, EDA have already been asked what works back best for them. It's come back as this Wednesday, February 26th at 9:30 after the EDA meeting, but I asked Leslie to hold off on making this scheduled until I knew it worked for you guys to be there. So we will have, I believe Greg's going to attend this meeting as well. Yeah, I think Greg's attending, and I think Ellers will.
It doesn't work for me.
Okay. Oh, it's today.
Yeah.
It's the little things that make me.
Oh, it's here.
I know, I caught you. Cause Dave had mentioned, well, I'll be seeing you at 3:30. I'm like, what are you talking about? But yeah, that would have been today. So
I can do, Thursday or Wednesday. Person,
do you guys want to let me know by tomorrow what works for you, and I can let Leslie know how to proceed?
I'll be honest, I won't be at any of those.
Okay,
I'll be at EDA that morning, or EDA or council, so that either of the two other meetings with times proposed would work for me.
Me as well, the Thursday or council or EDA, because I'll be at both, thankfully.
Doesn't matter to me.
Kyle, would that be something that you'd be able to attend virtually if we had a WebEx, or
Probably not.
is there a time that works?
No, February's kind of a mess for work right now, so.
okay, okay. And Gina, what did you say?
Thursday or Wednesday, I lost my sheet, so I have to.
Okay, so the last two, the 20th or the 26th?
Yeah, 20th or 26th.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask, and maybe we don't have the answers, but what are the goals of these joint work sessions? Because
Well,
my understanding with, I mean, we've got some funding things to figure out first before we start extending ourselves into committing to projects, so my understanding was the feasibility analysis was to gather information for what it was gonna take for us to be able to move forward. Maybe evaluate information and then come, but so again, I'm just kind of perplexed as to what the joint session, what the goals of these meetings would be other than to meet, knowing that we don't have the ability to fund it.
And I think too, when this was initially proposed, there was someone interested in this with the prospect of the state or the city funding this. And I have not been told directly, but I have heard that this person's not gonna proceed with this project, so that's a very valid question. Do we still continue? But I have heard there's other interest from other parties now. So how about I get clarity that this is necessary at this point without any confirmation of,
I would think, a couple layers. I would think, first of all, so that because we both represent the city, sometimes in these meetings, you need to find out that you don't overlap each other, that you're not both doing the same work. So that could be something, and it could be, also so that we all hear the same information at the same time. So that one meeting doesn't go a little different, and then it could also mean that, yeah, we're gonna do some brainstorming and figure out what.
how to move forward from here.
Path
Yep.
forward.
Mhm. So
Okay.
I don't know which one of those are true, but I can imagine those would be some of the benefits.
Okay, I will let her know those dates and find more information on the purpose of this meeting and get that to you right away. Okay, well, thank you. That was not a vote meeting. It was just informational.
Just for clarification, if this is something that the city does decide to fund, we're gonna get some kind of agreement in place that they're gonna commit to following through on this, correct? Or are we gonna fund it and then it falls through last time that spent a bunch of.
Well, I think, because one thing I've been stating in these meetings over and over is that according to Ellers, we should not be bonding for the next 2, preferably 3 years. So that's a huge issue and a huge roadblock to someone who's asking the city to do this immediately. We can't.
Well, even if that's part of the meeting, that all the people there hear the same message as
Right.
well, so, I don't see. Anytime we've had a joint meeting with the EDA and HRA, it's, something good has come out of it.
Oh, okay.
And it's, pretty robust conversation.
Okay.
I just really wonder, with all the history of everything that's gone on with the city funding projects and giving out TIF agreements, that we created this culture that the city's gonna step in and spend a bunch of money on this. It doesn't seem like we've ever really pursued individuals to come in that haven't asked for anything from the city just to do the project. And it'd be nice to see some of those individuals start showing up.
I do want to, state that the city doesn't decide if the funding qualifies for TIF. Our experts decide that, and then we decide if we want to accept that or not. So I don't think the city decided anything. Ellers, who happens to be a very conservative firm, said, this is what we see could work. And then we got to decide, yeah, it doesn't work for a city, or yeah, maybe it will work for a city. So we don't really make the financial,
You just approve.
we just approve. And they're known to be a bit conservative. So that's,
I guess just let me clarify, I feel like the city has developed a culture of giving everything away to try and bring somebody in. I don't know that that's always in the best interest of the city.
I just look at the dollar amount. Our typical bonding project is between 2.5 and 3.2 million. This would be over a $10 million bond because let's be realistic, 2 to 3 years from now, things could be stabilized, they could be more, they could be less, like just and housing is incredibly important in our city, in our region, in our area. I'm not discounting that. It's just,
The price tag.
and how do we get there?
and then my brain is also thinking though, we have lost grants and loans and whatnot because we haven't done the pre-planning. So I don't think it hurts to take a look.
I think it'll be nice to get EDA and HRA and council all in the same room to have these discussions, because that broadens our net that we can cast out for potential development that could come in and maybe could self-finance, or maybe has other types of financing available that we could leverage to complete this project and get some more housing.
The other question this brings up, are we so focused on this because this is one of the areas that we can have residential development that is left in our footprint? Or is this the time to have that discussion? Maybe should we start expanding our boundaries and finding more ideal parcels that draw in individuals? Because I don't know that this is the most ideal location for development, just given the soil types out there. and everything that's going on, so. I mean, I don't want to necessarily abandon a project, but I just don't know that this is the most ideal location to draw in developers.
Any further comments? Right, hearing none, we will move on to 10.4 lot combination of 12th Street Northwest, Snake River Point plat.
At the planning commission on January 22nd, we held a public hearing and invited the community around this property to come and express any concern that they have. Nobody showed up, so there was no concerns. And the Qs are looking at combining their 5 lots down into 4 for tax purposes. They don't have any plans of developing that land or anything, and they stated they would stay involved with the city if they chose or something were to happen. We don't really have standards to follow, other than the 25-foot road frontage on each property, and each property does have that. So we're just looking for council's final approval to let them combine in property.
Thanks, Jennifer. Any questions from council?
I make a motion to approve the lot combination at 12th Street Northwest.
I'll second Dan's motion.
Right, I've got a motion from Dan and a second from Gina. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tabitha.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, next up is 10.5 planning contract.
So these are 3 contracts that have been gathered, who are interested in doing planning zoning work with the city. Should we have questions? This is just bringing them forward to be transparent of what's been supplied to the city. I don't believe I need any type of voting on this. This is just to make you aware of what was brought to council or brought to the city on what is available, their rates. If you were able to look at them.
The only thing I wondered, would MSA as our current partner, would SEH and WSB? And I suppose if we're doing that, we might as well have MSA come forward too. Would they have a representative that could come out and do a presentation for us or tell us what makes them different or kind of give us their 10-minute overview of?
That's a nice idea. Would everybody be interested in that?
I don't know how. I need to, think about that more, because I feel like with Tabitha doing most of the work, these seem a little extensive for what we need done. I feel like we just need more now and again
That's exactly correct.
consulting versus a full-on planning proposal.
Correct. And if you looked at the planning contracts, I believe it was MSA is the only one who had like a baseline of, you had to meet, Tabitha, correct me if I'm wrong, that it was like, regardless, here's your baseline charge, should you need that or not, we still have that minimum charge, correct? So, yeah, which is substantial, because we're looking at a call here, a call there. In this short period, she's become a member of the American Planning Association. She's got a mentor. She has 2 different cities that she reaches out to freely for advice before even going to a contracted service or
Because if she has her mentor and you have some resources, I don't know how much more, I mean, I think you have Greg's number, I don't know.
I do.
Maybe we could just take our cues over the next little bit and see how it's going. Again, on big projects or something very unusual, it's so nice to have that consultant in your pocket, but I think the day-to-day stuff, you're doing a great job.
Well, I believe there's a line item in there, isn't it? In the budget, and
Correct.
is that how we, I mean, I guess it's a little early to see how we're doing on that right now, but
Professional services, yeah, and we
we could watch
we
that.
worked really hard the last year to bring that professional services down as much as possible, reaching out to the league or to other
Yeah.
other cities that we can, just what have you done with this? Just building our relationships with other cities to help us see what are good choices before going to a paid source.
And I hope you don't think because I'm not disapproving any of what's presented here, I just,
Correct.
it's a
Yeah,
little bigger than I was thinking.
yes, and I think that, we've learned SEH is a trusted service. The one I'm concerned about is the minimum fee, which I would hope we wouldn't even meet that, quite honestly, unless it's been an escrow issue. So,
I do think that Tabitha, I agree with Gina, Tabitha needs to step up and take the reins on this stuff. I do have concerns with this stuff. At the last meeting I was at, the first meeting of the year, I said that we need to have some kind of matrix in place to evaluate our contract services. I have a lot of hesitation with MSA, with planning commission, some of the presentations they do, not having the requisite knowledge on properties that can be developed and can't be developed. I know SEH is, Greg, you've done an awesome job on kind of presentations under fire in here. We haven't always seen the best presentations from some of our contractors or lack of knowledge, and they are very expensive. I would kind of like to not have MSA on the table personally.
Yeah, I can say from my previous experience on planning and zoning, when MSA was our primary planner, I felt as though the presentations were lackluster, to say the least. And just they didn't have what I was hoping they would have. They didn't have the information in front of me that I would have, they would have had. So,
And then often, would you like me to go research that? No.
It did seem like they kind of had interns doing presentations, so.
I don't think they were out of candidate for it. No.
Go back and research that. No, thank you.
and we did have a meeting with MSA when they were putting together their proposal, and that, I did bring that up as a concern, that we had their intern coming to our planning commission to answer questions that was not prepared for the questions, and we were very disappointed in that aspect of their working with the city. So I am very leery of their services personally. We know that SEH knows our neighborhood, knows our community, knows our streets, knows our needs, and it's typically gonna be a quick question, and I think they know the answer very quickly. So,
They're also very organized and prepared at meetings, presentations, especially with hostile residents, taxpayers.
Greg, you're.
yes, that is true.
For handling,
It's true.
audiences.
He's got a little tarnish around it.
And I don't want to call out WSB, I just don't know them, so.
I don't,
They were someone who, specializes in small cities and knows kind of the things that small cities deal with, or, towns less than 5,000.
Okay,
So that's why it's me.
I think they do.
Yep. Mhm.
I think it is important, though, to identify a singular one for us to use, because as great as the League of Minnesota Cities is, we have to remember that it's not, their advice is not legally binding. And someone in a consulting role is going to be able to give us legally binding advice and direction.
I agree with that. I just don't want any one contractor, consultant to think that they are irreplaceable. So I would still like to see some kind of assessment at the end of the year. Did we get what we wanted out of that consulting firm?
great, good, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So, my package here is more than just the planning stuff, and it kind of goes to the point. Mr. Palmer, our planning contract in there is exactly what we do for more, and it's just, when a person has a question, she calls up Lori and helps her over the phone, helps her over Teams. Rarely comes to a meeting, rarely prepares anything, staff prepares it, and that's the similar let's say lifeline, but the systems we presented here, just be as called when needed, no matter, oh, this one's different, I don't know, or this point covers this, did you read it, see, I read it the same. That's what we do with Laura, her students, since she's been there the last 2-3 years. No minimum, you gotta spend X amount to get it, it's just, whenever you pick up the phone and call, especially with us an email, we would do it, and Lori's been doing that, but personally, we had that service, we did meet with Tabitha, and she did meet Lori virtually here last month. First part of my proposal, I want to thank you for allowing us to be in this city since the 90s. I haven't been here retired since the 90s, always since 2010, which is 15 years, and about the same number of administrators. Steve is where it is.
Yeah, kind of thinking that.
But I really appreciate that, I appreciate your comments. And, to your point, Kyle, we have a master agreement that just says you're gonna use us. If you have something to do, we'll do it by the hour, and if you have a project in 10th Street, lift station, we have a proposal of the scope and the fee of the schedule. Our contract hasn't been updated with used since the 90s, and part of it is because of the turnover. That's what we all. So what's included? Feel free to review it, ask me questions, have Marcy ask me questions. I'd just like to get that updated at some point this summer, this spring, if we can. If you want to do the planning, we got our rates in there for Lori and her team. If you don't want to do the flag, that's fine. We can keep working under the contract we're under right now. But maybe by summer, I'd like to maybe get that new master approved or sooner. So it's exactly the same we have in Mora and Rush City. It's a 30-day wait. We changed our mind. We're done. But it just is beyond call city engineer. Like, they come to a meeting, they're going to look at this with Lori. They can develop some new project, bring us a proposal to the council to consider. I was going to do that on the 10th Street project, but your previous administrator didn't want to do that. You want to keep it as a city engineer, which makes a headache for your county staff. Trying to put all that time into the right fund, we're going to have the assessments. So there's still a little bit of work to go into this week. We're enforcing the assessments. And then we work with more of your own and do some of the services. But I just want to be clear what we put in there, how it's a little bit different from theirs. And because of the contracts that my people made me send to, it looks maybe a little more honest than onerous than it really was. It was just, hey, these are the people that have to call. Here's what we cost. We do this and more. I think that's what I heard you about it. So that's all.
I have one question about, your planner, because some planning involves thinking outside the box or getting creative with, parcels that could experience different kind of financing. Does your firm, have any connections with do you know certain developers that would take on Albatross, like this building, or that want to do new construction, or could your planning firm steer us in some of those directions?
Or answer would be yes. It's a lot of that right there.
Yeah.
In fact, when the Fawn Meadows thing started maybe 3 years ago, we do a lot of land development, not so much in Minnesota, but in other states, but they actually have a developers engineer. And I talked to that team about doing that, and they gave me some ideas and some of the costs. I put that together in there. We also have a group that does building renovations and stuff. We've done several, mostly in Wisconsin, maybe mixed use, maybe a public partnership type of thing.
That's exactly what I'm looking for, because when those come up, those are kind of, for us, those are maybe once or twice in a lifetime things, and
Right.
we need help in that area.
Timing's gotta be right.
Yeah.
Okay. We do.
All right, thank you.
My question is with planning and zoning as well. So yes, we signed the contract that SEH is our engineer for the city. Would that contract then say that we cannot reach out to any other planning zoning for an opinion? Or,
I don't think it's in there anywhere.
okay, I didn't see it either. So, okay.
My brother works for another city, and he calls me all the time. That's good, he keeps working with him, I don't want to. Great, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank
That's
you,
great.
Greg.
Can I ask Tabitha a question? Do you have any preference to any of the 3 proposals or the people involved with the 3 proposals as far as working with them and just the overall feel?
My personal feeling is SBH.
Okay.
The conversations that I had with Lori, I like the way she presented things, conversations that I had with Kirsten from Mora. Very, very valuable, very, very helpful.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, next we will move on to number 11, the mayor's report. I just have one thing, on the last weekend in January, we had a co-sponsored event with the Northern Lights Lions. It was Winterfest, we branded it. We had a snowball fight and some s'mores and marshmallows, and it was a great time. Dan and I got pelted with some snowballs.
I was trying to get there.
And Brock,
Yeah, Brock.
it was a good time. We had, I want to say somewhere between 35 and
50-ish,
60
yeah,
people,
it was
somewhere in there.
good.
So we had a pretty good turnout for a short notice and, being the first time, so.
I really hope we can annualize that, because I think we could make that a pretty cool annual.
Yeah.
It must have snow, wasn't it?
Yeah, and well, there was one young man out there that was a fan of Tom Miller, who asked, "Who knows Tom Miller?" Kent and I were like, "We know Tom." And this kid chucked snowballs like Nolan Ryan pitched fastballs. Wait. And then he kept finding funding, like you keep coming back, "I need 10 more." And I, "You gotta go behind the adult line this time." Like, it was awesome.
All right, and that's all I've got for that. Next we'll move on to item number 12.1, Counselor Hill, Pine City Street Reconstruction Assessment Policy Discussion under council member concerns.
Well, I asked to have this put on because I have a concern. My main concern is, and I guess maybe Greg can answer this question if I can bother him for a second. What does it look like with the finality of the 10th Street project? What are we looking at as far as times and dates?
So the final wear needs to be on by mid to late June. We could go ahead and get started on the assessment if you want. We're going to use recommendation not presented across the project. I think we can still be at 40% threshold. So, and the assessments aren't going to take effect until 0.6 anyway. But we wouldn't have to wait till we're done. We could get started this spring if we want. And if you want to also start out discussing, so work with Marcy on the notes what we need to do, the resolutions and bring it. But it would be done this year when we're by fall. So we have time to get them up to the county this year.
Well, and I know that process will happen. That's not my biggest concern. My biggest concern is are we looking at the picture that we need to be looking at? Are we looking at a fair assessments across the board? And I make that statement because of the economic times and what's happening with the costs of everything. I think we got a golden opportunity with the fact is, you know, we didn't fund or we didn't bond for that golf project. And the projects previously to that, except for the little, you know, the 14th Street and some of these other things that we did. You know, the last major one was the Fifth Avenue project, or Woodpecker Ridge, right?
Yeah.
And that was how many years ago?
That, and then we had the Industrial
Yeah.
Road.
Right. That was a big one. So I mean, we've got a few years on that. If we change, and that's why I want staff to put together comparables with other cities. I've asked for that. I want to see what everybody else is doing. I mean, last year, it sounded like Cambridge, Bram, Isani all rewrote their street assessment policies. Rewrote them. I don't know if you're familiar with any of them or.
I did work in Cambridge and more. I gave Marcy a bunch of examples of
Okay.
I'm familiar with.
From the cities too.
And I'd like to look at that policies along with our policy. Not just what we're gonna be doing with these people and probably using a different process to assess them, but, you know, are we doing it fairly? I mean, is this the path we need to go down? Because we know prices probably, I don't think are gonna go down. And I don't know if it's even the materials as much as the labor. We see the labor costs across the board going through the roof. And so we know we're probably in the same, we're not gonna change. But I look at 10th Street and I live on 10th Street and I'm on the south end of it, but it's a freeway at 2 or 3 times during the day. And I don't think the residents that live on that street should bear the blunt of the cost. That I think that needs to be shared with all city residents because they all benefit from that street and they all use it, along with a few other streets around town. So I just want to make sure we're looking at taking a really good hard look at that as soon as we can, because we all listened to the people that came to the hearings and the hearings were well done. You guys explained exactly what was gonna happen and most of it did. You can't control all the construction guys, so I understand that. But, we had residents in here that if we were gonna do it at the initial figures that we had, they're gonna have to sell their house. I don't want that to happen. I don't even wanna be a part of any of that, and I don't think we should have to be. I think, we have to understand it. Maybe we need to change as a city or something as far as the way this is spread out. And I don't know how to do that. That's why I want to start the discussions, so.
I think the thing to keep in mind, it's what, 77% is already being paid for by the taxpayers.
Right.
We're assessing for the 23%, which we could go down to 21%. The options at that point are either to keep it at that or to go to citywide. My concern with citywide is how do you put a priority on which projects get done no matter what you say, by having a new road is a benefit to you. I mean, that went from a cratered Middle Eastern road to very beautiful highway, as you say.
And it's bike lane.
And with a bike lane. There is still roads that are very rough out there, dead ends that have a low population. And once we change that policy, we can't just change back and forth to fluctuate. I believe even the people that were assessed on Fifth or Woodpecker Ridge back in the day are probably gonna have some complaints. I think there was an individual in here that had said, maybe we should take that remainder or whatever that years is and spread it out on citywide. But if we go that route, we have to have a very, clear policy on how we're gonna set priority and how we're gonna be fair, because if it's free for everybody, then everybody's gonna want it done. And they're gonna have just as many complaints as the individuals that are being assessed. I don't disagree that they're being assessed a lot, and that it's a very heavily trafficked road. Do hope that more police coverage would help cover that, or some speed bumps would slow things down. But we have to keep in mind that just because they're being assessed that amount, doesn't mean it's the full coverage, and that there are 77% of that is being spread out on the city still, so.
Well, part of my concern is that what the concessions we made up on golf. You know, is that gonna follow us to this? Have we set a precedent?
The precedent we use is the appraisal.
I know they're gonna want that appraiser to come down here and make sure that they can lower.
Yes.
That's the one, yeah.
You know, and the other thing is we always go back to Gulf. And at one point, Pine Township was in here to ask about, splitting the cost on a road that's gonna go, what is that, the southeast side of town, possible development on a gravel road. Gulf Ave feeds Pine Township. Those residents can only access that from that street. I mean, if we're looking at renovations, we should really be getting the townships in here to say, we're doing these developments, maybe we should split the cost with you. I mean, it's not fair that our taxpayers should always have to handle that burden for their access. I believe there's places up on, what is it, Seventh and, when Lori left, Seventh and Eighth, that always call in about the snow plowing and the road maintenance, and they're in Pocatello Township. So I like the idea of the policy. I think we just have to
I think we gotta look at it.
figure out a priority weight. And if it is areas where, one other, I guess, government entity is being benefited by it, maybe we should get them in to help cover that cost. Or annex them.
I think also too, if there are any changes to our assessment policy, we also need to make sure that our road replacement and road repair policy is up to date, and something that is a living document that we're keeping up to date and keeping up with and looking at or making any major decisions.
That's all I've got.
Perfect. Thank you. Next we move on to 12.2, liquidation of fixtures from 315 building.
So Brock, has been very busy in this building, inside and out, getting some stuff done, and we're to the point where it's time to start selling things. And just want to make sure that we're okay still with moving forward with selling furnitures and fixtures, scrapping out metal. Am I missing anything? How we want to do it?
I just tell you, want to get rid of them, old taxes, if we want. On sale. I got a couple of companies that would like you interested in gold. Is a where to go.
What do you plan on doing with the funds, or what is it gonna get put into, I guess? From those sales?
I have no idea how much it would be. Get a dumpster. A scrap that I have out there. One cover the dumpster now, but it would probably just make it a lot from blowing this, what we'll get. With garbage stuff. Or we pay ourselves back over there for the trees.
I think it's gotta go into the general fund, was my understanding, that anything that was purchased with taxpayer dollars would have to go back into the general fund to be dispersed out.
So, that's what I was getting at. There's been a bad track record before Nicole, of things not being earmarked for projects or departments. It just gets put in the general fund and then lost. So if we do make money off of it for whatever reason, it'd be nice to earmark a project and have that money stay in that living document, not be spent on something that it was never. I don't know how to describe this. I'd like to see that it stays within some certain project or scope of work and doesn't get put into something useless or dumb.
How much, the companies that do it, do they charge is it based on a percentage of what sells and they take part of it, or?
Right now, I'm just at the meeting stage, contacted two. And, they just sent some pictures and all that. Assuming they're gonna make sure I'm in good shape. I don't. We're gonna comment, but.
What's the easiest for Brock?
What's the easiest for me?
Yes.
Well, it's all handy on stuff, so I'd say scrap
It, if you put a free sign on it and they come and take it and you don't have to have a dumpster or haul it away, I mean, that could save a lot of money in itself, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Open it up maybe for one day for public walkthrough?
I would just have a deadline at the end of the week. First come, first serve, it goes out the door and we save a lot of money by not having to figure out how to haul it or dispose of it.
Do we have to, as a government entity, can we? We've gone through this at the county a couple times with old technology and old equipment. Do we have to receive some form of payment for it, or can we give it away? I know that's always an issue with it has to be offered at a fair market value, or if it's exceeded its useful lifespan, then there's different sets of rules.
Declared salvage, I think, anyways, to a certain point.
Right.
I don't know, Rock took me around, I looked in, there's a lot of stuff, More than I can remember, I guess you pile it all in one room, it makes a difference, but, I think just letting him handle it, would be just, he's been pretty good about, making a nickel go a long way, so I think we can trust his judgment on that. I do have a concern and I just asked Brock and he doesn't insure on a lot of some of the big old ledger books and stuff, that are in there. For God's sakes, I don't want to see them go away. I mean, I think there's like a lot of history in them and, we did salvage all that stuff. I can remember the days when, Dan Kieselworth sat at the tall desk like Scrooge. I mean, cause that's what everything was penciled in at that time. There was no computers. And, there's a lot of history there and it'd be really kind of fun to look through some of the really old ones. So we need to maintain that stuff and I'm sure there might be some information that shouldn't be shared with anybody anyway, so.
What do we do with all that stuff? Where do we end up storing it all?
Well, they got that, how full is that cubicle yet or?
Or storage unit in the back, how full is it in the back room?
Well, now when I move, there's gonna be some tree things on the side of it. That makes sense.
You know, some of that, I don't know if they can take that, it would have to maybe be inside, maybe some totes or something, I don't know, or some kind of protection.
I don't know, I just think about all the little crafts that I made when I was in kindergarten, my parents got it stored up in the attic, and I'm not gonna take it at the end of the day, I'm just gonna throw it in the trash, so if citizens think that it has historic knowledge, that's great, but if you just dump it in a cubicle, it's probably gonna sit in there for another 60 years, and then we're gonna have the conversation that maybe we should keep it, so there's only so much space, and I think that we kinda need to clean out the hoard that we got in there.
We're at the final stage, right? Like we're at the final of the horde. So to Dave's point, just Brock, do what you need to do and with who you need to do it with to get it done.
For now, there's squirrel away somewhere.
You're gonna hoard it away?
Squirrel it away. Squirrel it away, it's a big difference.
But I mean, as far as the rest of the furnitures and fixtures and scrapping and stuff.
I think just looking at the check register, we seen where we spent, what, $2,700 on heat in this place last month.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think it's gonna be a problem spending the money that comes out of whatever you can get. I think it'll be spent. I don't think we need to designate it for a project. I guess I'm not opposed to that, but I think we've got enough expenses in this place that we need to defer. I think it could go against this, so.
Is this coming back at the next meeting for the RFP that went out?
It should be on the first March meeting because the closed yesterday. And then the offers are gonna be brought before the 315 main work group, which is the 13th of
next Thursday.
February. We will review the two offers and then it'll be presented to council. I would assume it's the first meeting. I mean,
I don't know, don't know if it would make.
it could be the second meeting, but I'll find out.
But
The idea of a nighttime meeting.
the scoring matrix, we went over at the last 315 meetings, so everything's in place, everybody's had a chance to, so it's objective. And should go pretty quickly.
Excellent.
Yeah, cause $2,700 to keep the bugs warm.
Yeah.
And the ghosts.
And the ghosts.
All right, any further comments? Hearing none, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Dave, second for Kyle, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Right, Dave, I keep watching over your head all during.
Yeah, I know.
What happened?
If you thought I was staring at you, I was looking out the window.
Sorry.
It's coming down.